Hello, Nick and Ox back again for another video. Today's video, as I promised before, is going to be about doing a successful yard sale, garage sale, before you move overseas. I think you will find that as much as you can get rid of before you have to go overseas, the better. And depending on where you're going, that may mean purchasing things on the other side, which some things are really easy to get a hold of and some things aren't. So that's part of that beginning process to figure out what can I live without before I leave and what can I get there. Things like dishes and bedding, basics like that, probably are things you can get on the other side and save you some money in having to pack. The first thing to think about is, how are you going to do that move? Do you plan on hiring a company to ship your stuff overseas? Or do you plan on paring down to the clothes on your back and a couple pieces of luggage and then just going? Those are both valid things to do, but you kind of have to pick which way you want to go. So keeping in mind that if you're going with children, they're going to want to bring some toys, some sentimental objects. Blankets might be a bigger deal for kids, depending on the age, than for you as an adult. Having their blanket or their pillow or their preferred stuffy or can make the difference between feeling sort of comfortable and safe in a very new place. So those are things that you want to be sort of very strategic about. But once you have decided which direction you want to go, the paring down process begins, figuring out what can I live without until we move, depending on how far ahead you start this process. We decided to start the process very early in order to give ourselves plenty of time to have yard sales, garage sales, figure out what we need, what we don't need, and not be inundated with trying to do that whole process right before we go. The other reason we started way ahead is because we are leaving in winter rather than in summer or spring or fall. And those are seasons that it's much easier to have a yard sale and get rid of things than obviously in winter in Michigan. So we sort of have to think about paring down when we can most easily get rid of the things and actually make some cash on it. So that is something to consider wherever you live in the United States. What is a good time to actually do that process? Summer's pretty standard where I'm from, of having yard sales and garage sales and those kinds of things, but your state may be different. It may be difficult to do that kind of thing in your state, or if you live in an apartment building or something. So those are considerations. Once you decide when you're going to have the yard sale, thinking about where you're going to have it or how you're going to have it. Do you have a friend who lives in a particularly great area that has lots of walking traffic or a lot of car traffic, or maybe is a really big area for yard sales, garage sales, or has a neighborhood time for those things? If you don't have that yourself, our particular area is very walkable. So the sale we just had, we had lots of walking traffic on a Saturday. So we're in a great location. your mileage with that may vary. That can also impact how successful your sale is depending on the types of items you're getting rid of. So, if you live in the suburbs and you're getting rid of maybe a lot of furniture, IKEA type stuff, that kind of thing, you don't have kids, that may make it more difficult for the people who are around you who maybe don't need starter furniture or are looking for kids items, or so those are things to keep in mind, based on the types of items you think you're going to be getting rid of. So you have your sale ready to go. You know when you're going to do it. You know how you want to kind of, what items you want to get rid of. I would say call in support. I had my mom and my stepdad and a cousin of mine who offered to support and help with a 2-day sale over a weekend. It's a lot to put together. A lot of people don't do them because they are a lot to put together. Setting things out, tearing things down. We don't have a garage, so it was a yard sale, so you have to tear it down at the end. Pricing all the items, organizing all the items, answering questions on items people want to pay. Having extra people to help makes it so much easier. And it was still kind of stressful, even with all those extra hands, and they were amazing, and I'm very grateful. But it is a lot. So just be prepared for that. And you may not have enough tables or places to put items or tarps, or so those are all also things that I kind of called in support from them to kind of help. Hey, who has some folding tables? I don't. We don't live in a place where we have a lot of extra room for those kinds of things. So the big thing, if you're doing a yard sale with kids, it can be very difficult, depending on the age of your kids, to be able to purge, especially in the amount that you probably will need to for moving overseas if you're choosing not to just pack it all up and bring it with you. So we worked out an incentive for our kids that anything that goes in the sale, we put a colored sticker on there. So, one might have pink, or one might have yellow, or whatever color, and that all of the proceeds that they make off of their items gets saved and set aside for them. And then half of that money is money that they get now, and the other half is saved for the move. So either if they want to buy things on the trip over, or they want to pick up something when we get to our destination. So that they have a little money to kind of play with, of, maybe they had to get rid of something here, but they'll be able to pick up something similar on the other side, or get something new that is exciting, for that first couple weeks of being in a brand new place. So we live in a place that is not, our direct neighbors don't have a lot of families, but we do live in an area that does have families. And so the kids' stuff, a lot of plushies, things like that, was actually quite popular. And so they both made some money off of it, and that kind of eases the blow of having to get rid of things that maybe they'd rather not. Most kids don't like to get rid of things in general. So we also tried to make it fun. We decided for them to be able to do a lemonade stand, which is not something we did a lot when I was a kid, but you don't see as much anymore. And since we had a lot of traffic into the yard sale, that gave them the opportunity to sell a lot of cups of lemonade and make a little extra cash. And we didn't put any limits on that. That is cash. That is something they made for themselves. That's cash they get to keep. So making the sale kind of fun for them to engage with, and some incentives for making it a positive experience was very helpful. Setting up your yard sale, there's a couple ways you can do it. We use the color sticker method just because it made it easier with separating the kids' items. Some people like to just set up, set up tables, so $1 table, $3 table, $5 table, that kind of thing, and set things out that way, or bins, dollar bin, and if you have items that are quite different, it's pretty easy to see this goes with that bin, this goes with that bin. If you don't, it can make it more confusing if you have helpers helping you with payment of how much was this, how much was this. You get a lot of questions about how much do you want for this. Some people enjoy that. It gives the opportunity for some haggling, either direction. The sticker method works best. It's a lot of extra work, but for us, it made sense. We were really only tracking the stuff my mom had put into the sale for herself and the kids' things. So all the other money just went into a pool of stuff. So, and if people want a different price, they'll usually, hey, would you take this much for it? And that brings me to my next point. When it comes to moving overseas, in the end, if you're choosing not to move things, it's all got to go. If you're choosing to pare down as much as possible when you move, you're not going to keep this stuff anyway. So getting too hung up on the price that you're going to get out of that item can make it kind of nerve-wracking and overwhelming of, I need to get a good price. Obviously, you want to make as much money as possible for that trip, for that move, to have your nice little nest egg. However, you're not taking most of it with you anyway, and we have a strict rule that when we do something like this, the stuff doesn't come back into the house. Especially with kids' things, even if you intend to have another sale or something, if it didn't sell at that first sale, it's kind of less likely that it's going to sell at the next one, and kids will get their hands back into things and pull them back out, and they go back into their room, and then you got to do the process all over again. So we said if we do another sale, it's going to be paring down further towards the end of the summer or beginning of the fall when the weather's still good, and it'll be with different stuff. And at that point, you're getting closer and closer to your time of needing to leave, and maybe you can let go of a bit more stuff, So that is our philosophy. It definitely makes it feel more, oh wow, look at how much stuff left. You don't think about, oh, look at all the stuff that came back in. It's easier to feel like it was successful, regardless of how much money you made. Just checking my notes here to make sure I didn't forget anything. It's important to also schedule your sale, understanding what's going on in your city or your town. It can greatly impact how many people, even if you live in a very walkable area, how many people actually are around. If you're around a holiday of some sort where a lot of people are out of town or visiting family, or, maybe don't do it during 4th of July weekend, or, right back to school time, because different districts will start at different times, and then people just aren't as interested in buying more things. So being aware it can work in both ways. Having big events can mean more foot traffic in your area in general. Maybe there's a concert nearby, so there's a lot of people going to and fro, so that might make it easier for you to get people into your sale. So those are things to keep in mind. Is it going to be successful? It depends on your definition of success. In our mind, ours was very successful. Not only because we got rid of a lot of stuff, and because we made money we wouldn't otherwise make. Our plan is not to move a bunch of stuff, to pare down to the basic necessities, few emotional, sentimental items, and move that way. And so we were going to get rid of the stuff either way. So any money you make is a boon. So it feels very good to walk into that bank and be like, here you go. Oh, my last tip. This is a big one. Be prepared with other forms of payment. So we did the usual thing and we pulled out cash and to give change. It's not like it was when I was a kid. People aren't walking around with change in their pocket for cheap items. So have Cash App, have a couple different kinds of apps you can take payment from, so that you are flexible, because a lot of people don't carry cash on them. If you don't live in an area with an ATM, that is easy for people to do. They might just say, well, I don't have any cash, and walk away, rather than saying, oh, it's a $4 item. Do you take Cash App? Do you take, whatever other ones that are available? And we ended up using 2 different ones. So you might want to have a couple different ones available to you, accounts, so that you can take money. And we took a considerable amount that way. So we did take cash as well, but that is kind of important these days, just because not everyone's going to have cash. So yeah, those are some of my tips and tricks to having a great, successful yard sale before a big move. I would love to hear any other ideas people have. I am sure there are many ways to have a great sale. These are ones we found that work well for us. And we may or may not do another one before we get to the end kind of that season. So, very loud birds over here. So thank you so much for stopping in. I hope if you're having a yard sale, garage sale, that you make lots of money, get rid of lots of stuff. And if you do, tell me how it goes. Like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. Let me know how your summer of yard sailing is going. And I will see you next time. Bye.